Hari Om. Hari Om. Hari Om. Hello, my friends. Let's talk about Kundalini. Kundalini, the mythic snake coiled up at the base of the spine that should be awakened and rise up to the top of the head. There is no snake there, but there is a potential of energy at the base of the spine. And if one starts to become more conscious, if the energy level is lifting up in the manifestation, in the physical body, in the subtle body, that potential energy at the base starts to rise. If we're lifting up our energy, then the whole body automatically already is more energized. But there is such a thing like a potential that is there, that is latent in most of the people, and only little drops of it are being used, can rise up and activate different centers in the body until it reaches the top of the head. And then there is peace. There are people who think that when the Kundalini rises, then on top of the head, there is that big and final enlightenment. That is not quite the truth. But if that energy reaches the top of the head, then the mind becomes quiet. And in that quietness, the attention can easily come back home to the source. There are all kinds of practices to awaken this Kundalini, but they are not without danger, because if somebody goes forcibly about it without having proper guidance, it can also misfire. That energy can go the wrong way, can go disharmonious and create a lot of diseases and pain in the body. Some say it can even create death. I haven't heard really of somebody to whom this happened. These yogic practices connected with Kundalini should best be undertaken with a teacher who knows what they are teaching. Now, Mariano has asked me that when he's doing self-inquiry, when he is meditating, recently very clearly he felt like the energy centers in the body are aligning. And he felt very inspired by that and asked, is it necessary to do practices to awaken these energy centers, the chakras? Now, if you ask me like this, Mariana, no, it's not necessary to do particular practices to awaken these centers. It is true, no matter how we are meditating, no matter how we are practicing, the more you're becoming really aligned with yourself, your attention comes back to yourself, the more the energy level rises, and whatever change is needed in those energy centers starts to happen all by itself, harmoniously. Somebody may practice for years and not be quite aware how subtly in the subtle body and even in the physical body things are changing, but it may be such a gentle process that they are never aware of it. No, it is not strictly necessary to do particular exercises to awaken these energy centers. But at the same time, if somebody feels drawn to it, one can do so, and it is helpful. But only for somebody who really feels that is their natural thing to do. Only for somebody who really likes to do so. Somebody who is ready to make a commitment and be regular about those practices. Because if you practice directly with the vital force that influences the chakras, that influences the subtle body and influences the gross body, then it is better to be regular about it. Because every time you do so, it's a little bit of stress for the nervous system. And then it takes a little time to adjust to that. And as the energy is rising, as the energy becomes stronger, the body has always to adjust. And if we do that and then stop in between and then do it again for some time and stop in between, the body has always to adjust that it is being done and then has to adjust again that it is not being done, and it can create quite a stress for the nervous system that can lead to certain mental imbalances. But if somebody feels drawn to that yogic approach of activating more and more those centers, of rising the energy, rising up to the top of the head, one can do these practices. They are very helpful if they are properly done. They can create a lot of trouble if they are not done properly. But somebody who doesn't feel like being drawn to that, but simply is persuaded by because of other people talking like this, because of what they read, because they think if I'm not doing so, I'm missing out on something, and then more in a reluctant way goes about it, tries to do so, then there is most probably not much sense in it. Then it would be better to just let it happen all by itself without giving any special attention to it. It does happen. If you sincerely train yourself to be more conscious, if you sincerely train yourself to remind yourself to bring the attention back whenever it comes to the mind, to be in the present, learn to be connected consciously with that essence, then this subtle changes, they are happening all by themselves. So don't go for it if you have a reluctant feeling. But if you really feel drawn to it, then you can start to gently do something about it. But it's better that you then follow the instruction of somebody who knows more about it, not simply knows that from books, but from their own experience. It is not the end. Ramana says, when asked, when pressed, because he doesn't talk about Kundalini usually, but when pressed, he says, yes, there is such a thing, but it's more like a curve. It goes up to the body, to the top of the head, and then it comes down again to the heart. So it's not the end of the story. If a yogi is capable of raising that energy all the way to the top of the head, it's certainly a very good state if that is happening. There is peace. The mind doesn't need to be controlled to be peaceful. Just relaxing is enough, and there is it is, right here, right now, that natural peacefulness. But then the work continues. This is a wonderful base. And in that peacefulness, consciousness, the experience can unfold beautifully. Now Ramana says we should come down to the heart on the right side. But also that is not something one has to somehow train to happen. If that intensity is increasing in that peacefulness, then whatever is needed will happen all by itself. And I don't really believe that in everybody exactly the same thing is happening. You can also see it when you look at the Kundalini stories. Everyone has to tell another story. And they are all right, but they are all a particular experience. But maybe just quoting a particular scripture, particular book about it, but then in somebody else's story, it may happen quite differently. And as I said, for most of the sadhaks who don't give attention to the chakras, who don't give attention to Kundalini, gradually this is happening all by itself without them even thinking of it, without them even being aware of it, because it's such a gentle process that it's not spectacular. For the yogis, it's more likely when they do Kundalini exercises and then they feel their energy rise, that it is accompanied by very special experiences. But if you learn to be quiet in the timelessness of the now, this same thing can happen, but is most probably much more peaceful, much more harmonious than if we try to forcibly push that energy up the body. Now, Mariano, I recommend you, if you feel like doing so, then get really a bit instructed about it. Otherwise, you can do as much yourself, that when you are meditating, that you also putting the attention on that subtle energetic happening, start to feel those centers better, and in that way you are also activating them more than if you completely ignore them. But this main importance is still bring the attention back home to the essence. Stay in that peacefulness, in that joyous peacefulness that is natural. And then continue your work by bringing the attention home again and again and again until it sticks. If this is happening, then the hard work is over, and yet still there is a further sinking in, becoming more powerfully quiet, becoming more powerfully present, and radiating that beauty and that presence. So yes and no, Mariano. Yes, it is very useful if it's done properly. No, if one doesn't have the inclination to do so, but then thinks I have to do it, otherwise I'm missing out on something. We are only missing out if we are not sincere in being conscious. We are only missing out if our heart is not opening and that overflowing love starts to bubble up and radiate. Just be authentic, be sincere, and all this that is looked at as very spectacular in the yogic story is happening gently, harmoniously, all by itself. I wish you all well, Mariano. Okay, my friends, I stop about ranting away about Kundalini. Is there anybody here that would like to come in and say something? You are welcome.
Hello.
Hello, Andreas.
Recently, I started to practice something that is called trauma releasing exercises, TRE.
Yeah.
And first, you, do you know it by any
No,
chance?
no,
Okay.
I don't know.
It's about the pelvis and the area around there. And if first you make your muscles in this area tired, and then you lie on the ground, and then put it in a certain position, and then the legs and the lower body starts to shake to release. Because the idea behind it is that, like, you hold traumatic experiences, you often hold there as an energy, and by releasing that, the psychological content may come up too, but also the blocked energy is releasing, and it's a lot of shaking happening.
Mm-hmm.
Happening, or shivering, maybe. I don't know what is the Zittern in German.
Yeah.
And yeah, I realized this is very helpful for me because I'm holding a lot of energy and I'm very locked in this area. And when I do it, I can breathe much more easily into my abdomen. And it feels open, some kind of opening. Do you have to be careful with that too, in your understanding? Or do you have anything to say about it?
Think about if you go about it gently and don't try to force anything, there is absolutely no problem. But you say, are you doing that under guidance, or you just have somehow seen that in a book how to do
Uh,
it?
Someone showed it to me who is an experienced practitioner once,
Yeah.
and have done it now 2 times without him, and I'm seeing him on next Wednesday, and he's showing it again, and then I will get a little bit of guidance with
Oh,
it.
yeah. Ah, very good. Yeah, yeah. You say when you're tiring your muscles, and then
Yeah,
around the pelvis, and then you lay down, and then it starts to shiver all by itself and shake.
yeah, yeah.
Or you consciously initiate the shivering and the shaking.
No, it's happening mostly. You have to open up to it, but it's happening by itself.
Hmm.
It's not something you willfully produce.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
happening. And yeah, and I felt that I have a lot of tensions
Mm-hmm.
blocked up there. So seems quite helpful and interesting for me. It comes from the bioenergetics.
Yeah, yeah. If you feel that you are being helped and that there are tensions that are released in this way, then yes, go ahead, no problem. Just do it in doses and maybe be a bit regular at least for some time.
Yeah, I can breathe much better after it into the lower abdomen, because usually this area is kind of difficult to breathe into for me, even in meditation. And in Zen they say like there's a lot of spiritual energy in the hara, which is nearby there.
Yeah, which is nearby there, right? So that also is being awakened and released. Yes. It sounds in no way harmful to me, so no problem. You can go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you feel it's helpful, then great. Whatever is helpful is good.
Yeah, sometimes I think maybe you can say something about the interplay between like the body and the energy and the like the meditation that is happening then, that is so that like I feel if I'm very much blocked there, the meditation is more difficult or doesn't reach a certain depth, or the breathing, it influences very much the breathing.
Right. The body and the energy are part of the subtle body mainly, but then there are also the physical energies. They are, of course, very closely connected, and you can give more attention to the body or more attention to the energy or both simultaneously. When we do things physically, without being very conscious, we still influence the energies. And if we are not careful what we are doing physically, then we may create a disharmony on the energetic level. When we are doing a lot of things that is not helpful for the body and that is also not helpful for the mind, but is rather against being natural, then the energies are invariably also involved and can create troubles. But if we are physically behaving in a harmonious way, that influences the energies also in a harmonious way. But vice versa is the same. If you put the attention more and more on the energetic level and learn to balance out those energies, then automatically it will be healing for the physical body, and it creates a lot of very nice changes that simply your feeling of being here now becomes more attractive. It's a magical interplay. You can never exclude one from the other, energy and the physical.
Yeah, it's much more difficult to be here and now when it doesn't feel pleasant.
Yes, then usually we don't feel here and now also because the attention is somewhere, and that energetically also gives an imbalance most of the time. And then it's not so easy to be aware of that simple physical presence. We forget about it, and simply if something hurts, then we remember, oh, there is also the body that is there, but it hurts. And just being aware physically and learning more and more to be relaxed in that experience includes automatically the energetic levels. There are grosser and subtler energetic levels, and they are the more you are in the present, feeling the body, but relaxing that, not like getting locked in the body, but just feeling through the physical presence, your presence. And then the energetic level harmonize and you become more and more aware of it. And then more and more, the physical experience becomes like it's a ball of energy.
I thought about that you said often relax your legs.
Yes.
And do you think this is connected to the exercises that I described? Because is it really the legs that needs to be relaxed, or when you because I can feel when I relax the area around my pelvis, my legs have to relax too.
Mm.
So, or is there something special, some special energy hidden in the legs?
There is,
Addition.
there are special energy centers all over the body, but it's not because of some very, very special energy centers in the legs that I'm saying relax your legs. But the legs are something that people are a bit cramping up most of the time without even knowing it. That the legs of people are rarely really relaxed. And the very fact of putting the attention in the legs and consciously give the impulse, relax, that automatically, when you relax your legs, then the pelvis also will relax and the rest of the body also will relax, which gives the energy a chance to harmonize itself much easier.
Because I couldn't do it so well when my pelvis is like very stuck, stiff,
Yeah.
then I cannot really relax my legs very well.
If this helps, that the new exercise that you are doing, then that's great. That maybe you can also, when you are anywhere on the way and you cannot lie on the ground and shiver away, then that more and more, then you give just the impulse, relax your legs, and it will do something relaxing to the whole body energetically, which automatically also helps to relax emotionally and intellectually.
Okay.
It's not a special magic, the legs. The whole thing is magic. The whole psychophysical manifestation is magic. But it somehow it so happened that people always cramp up the legs. And if we get around of reminding ourselves to relax, it helps very much to feel that sense of presence. Because then when you relax the legs, the rest of the body relax, and energetically and then emotionally and intellectually, you begin to relax much more. But by all means, continue your exercise. See where it leads.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Hari Om. Hari Om. I see Floyd. You would like to come in and say something?
Yeah, I was just to add to what Andreas said. I was trying a lot of these exercises, for a long time. Not trauma release, but there were some other exercises with Osho where he recommends shaking of the body,
Yeah.
then shaking of the hips.
Yeah.
And they say that a lot of this stored emotions are in the hips,
Yeah.
in the genital area, and so on. So, but what I realized, or what I was told later by a Tibetan doctor was, not to be so obsessed about it. Because if your hips are naturally tight from birth, or they are less flexible than others, it doesn't matter. You just need to do, okay, just observe what's going on when you do the exercise and do your best. But you don't need to aim at full flexibility and all that. And I asked him why. So he said, you don't need to produce a baby from your hips.
Right. Certainly, it was also not about making your body as flexible as possible, but in our way of cramping up physically, we're storing. It's not really literally so, but it feels like that we are storing problems in certain places. And what he describes that exercise or similar exercises that you consciously open up, that you consciously relax, can help us that to bring up stuff that is stored in the subconscious. And when those things come up and are released, then the body has also the tendency to be more relaxed. And then you can still train yourself to become super flexible if you want or not. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. But sometimes they say also this is related to awakening of the root chakra. And also they say that, if you let go of these, blockages or things like that, you will go deeper into meditation because they indicate some form of grossness.
Right. If you do that with the proper attitude of really helping you to be consciously here, then it does that. Helps you in your spiritual practice. That doesn't mean it is needed. You can do your spiritual practice. You can sit quietly without doing anything, and the chakras are starting, as I said in the beginning, they start to open up all by themselves. It's if one feels like doing such exercises, they are helpful. But it's not so that if one doesn't feel like doing them, one should push oneself because otherwise I'm missing out.
Yeah. But how important is it, like in Isha Yoga, like Sadhguru's place, and some places, even in Ramana Ashram, I see some people they bring, special pillows to sit, in a certain way. And that pillow itself could be, half the weight of their bag, like it's a big pillow. And to sit for a long time. And then once I had an argument with a woman, I think she was an Amma disciple or some recent Amma disciple. And she said, like, she was asking for a silicone pillow. And she said, if I don't find a silicone gel pillow, I cannot sit for long in Ravana Ashram. So I said to her, why do you need that? You can always, stretch yourself or get wall support. So she said, no, maybe you have not meditated for long periods, so you don't know, but I want to sit for 2 hours, 3 hours, and be in that state. So I need a special pillow, silicone gel pillow, which sort of adjusts, to your body's
Yeah.
structure, and then you can sit longer. So is that important to focus on sitting longer, or when the body cannot do it, you just leave it at that and just walk around and still be in that awareness? Or how do you see it?
Yeah, it's again different for different people according to what they want. If somebody wants to sit for long hours, then it's good to sit for long hours. But if you don't really want to do so, you need not think that because of that you cannot get anywhere. I mean, in most of the Zen schools, they are sitting hours and hours when they have their sessions, but they never sit for long hours at the stretch. There are some that sit 20 minutes and then get up and walk. Others sit 40 minutes and get up and walk and make that walking also in a meditation. Also in other Buddhist meditation techniques, it's always interrupted the sitting that you get up and stretch your body and walk gently and meditate while doing so, and then you sit again. But it's not for everybody to sit for a long time in one stretch. If somebody feels like doing so and gets trains him or herself to sit longer and longer and can do so without difficulties, without that the body after that is a continuous obstacle, then it can be very helpful to sit for long hours in one place, in one position. But only if that comes natural. If one tries to force that about, it's not helpful, and it would be better to stretch the legs or get up and walk and do something else in between and then sit again.
So, like, somewhere in Osho's meditations, they say, that even sitting becomes like an obstruction.
Mm.
So they do sitting, but then in the end stage, they lie down, you know.
Mhm.
They lie down because they say you can lie down longer,
Right.
but you don't just lie down. You do something preparatory so that your energy, I don't know if it's Kundalini, but the Shakti is moved in your body. And then when you lie down on your back in Shavasana, you will remain in a very long, prolonged,
Mm.
meditation kind of state, which can go for 1 hour or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but in traditionally, I've seen that Ramana Maharshi or all the yoga schools, they don't recommend lying down much,
Yeah. Now, I certainly don't believe that sitting becomes then in itself an obstacle. But for people who sit and the sitting is rather a bit of strain,
Yeah.
it is quite recommendable after that, if it's possible, to stretch out for a moment and not as you described necessarily that then you start to do basically your own exercise for meditation lying, but just to relax and let the body again adjust to be in another position. But it is not strictly necessary, but it can be helpful after sitting longer to at least a moment just stretch out and relax without doing something special. Now, what you described is something different, that you basically it's part of the meditation that at a certain time you lie down and continue with a particular meditation there. And it after sitting, doing that lying down, it's getting easier, and I can imagine that this is true. But you can as well train yourself to just sit and relax while sitting more and more, and then you need not lie down and do it in a different way.
No, their idea is that when you're lying down, you're like a dead body. There is no gravity which is sort of
Yeah,
working on you, or you're not being bothered by the sitting position or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and is there any significance to sitting on the floor versus sitting on the chair? Because I've done both, but somehow I prefer to sit on the floor, maybe take some support or something.
If you can easier sit on the floor, then I would recommend that whenever it's possible and you would like to meditate, sit on the floor. But you can sit on the chair, but then you have to somehow look that also in the chair you remain somewhat straight.
Hmm.
And if you want to sit in a meditative position, then maybe it becomes a bit difficult on the chair. Uh, and the, the meditation position has its advantage energetically, but like all the other things, it is not strictly necessary. You can also sit on a chair and have your feet on the ground, and in that way become quieter and quieter. And for some people, it may be so much more easy to do so that it's rather recommendable to meditate in that way. If it's physically too harsh for them to cross the legs and sit on the floor. But if that crossing the legs and sitting on the floor comes relatively easy, then it's worth to do that because it has an energetic quality of keeping the alertness easier in the presence than when you're lying down or sitting reclined in an easy chair.
Yeah. I was doing something called as heartfulness meditation, but they don't focus on the heart chakra, but they focus on the heart, physical heart, left
Yeah,
side.
yeah,
And I think Ramana used to recommend to focus on the spiritual heart on the right side. But for some reason, they focus on the left side.
yeah,
And somehow I found that, like after sitting for some time, your head would drop in that meditation.
yeah,
It is like, like, and they say it is like a state where your you have sort of given up that conscious control of holding up your head
Yeah,
and drop in that
yeah.
position, but that doesn't mean you have gone to sleep.
Mm.
But in a public setting, usually someone would think that if someone's head has dropped, he's gone to sleep.
Yes.
And the master himself developed spondylosis because the head would remain in this position for a long time.
Mm.
So he developed spondylosis. So he said you need to put a tape from your head to the wall so that you don't drop.
Yes, the head can drop gently, even if you are very well alert and concentrated. But the other, of course, happens easily. Anyone who has tried to meditate a bit sincerely knows the other one, that if the mind becomes quiet, you get relaxed, that the tendency, the temptation is there to start to slip off in sleep. And then, of course, the head puff makes that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's possible that without you being aware, but still being alert, that the head goes down a bit, and people may think, oh, now he's going to sleep, without it being so.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
We don't have to
Uh,
be stiff, but the traditional, rather straight
mm,
position has its advantages energetically, and it helps also because that little tension that is created just to keep the body straight is also helpful to keep you alert and awake.
mm. And is there some significance when your head goes up and you're sort of,
Mm.
pointing towards the sky? Because many meditations I've seen, your head naturally sort of looks up, like,
Yeah.
and there's a focus on the third eye, forehead area. So is there any reason for that or significance to it or?
No special significance. But basically, it's best that you just remain straight. But then
Mm,
it can happen that without you doing something, that the head turns a little bit like this. But then people to whom that happens, after that, they start to do it on purpose. And then it just becomes a habit, and there is no advantage in it to meditate like this instead of the head straight. But previous, I used to go for some time walking in the morning, and there is a quarry there which usually fills up with water in the rainy season, and many sadhus are going there to take their bath. But there was always a sadhu there sitting in every morning there, doing his meditation with his head looking up and making all kinds of sounds. But that was just his habit of going about it. I don't think there is any special advantage in doing so.
mm, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, thanks for sharing your perspective because sometimes people ask me,
Yeah,
because I've been doing meditation for a while, they ask, what is this? What is that? So
yeah, yeah.
sometimes it is difficult to, because every school, I think they fixate on some perspective rather than giving a sort of integrated
Right.
perspective.
That is
Mm.
a tendency that is very much there in different schools. Then they point out certain things, and then the followers of that school take it very serious that that is important, and then somehow it can sometimes a bit miss the basic spirit of it. So when people ask you about, then you can feel spontaneously what you tell, but basically you can tell them just sit normal. You need not go after special things. If people want to do so, they can, but it's not that one is missing out on something very important if one doesn't do that.
Mm.
Shall we leave it
Okay,
at that?
yes, thank you,
Hari
Master.
Om. Hari Om. You're
Hari Om.
welcome. Is there anybody else who would like to say something?
Hello, Werner.
Hello, Dale.
I want to ask you about karma yoga.
Karma yoga.
So, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talk about 4 yogas, and you usually speak about 3 ways.
Yes.
And you usually speak karma yoga is just busyness. And my experience was when I start practicing Vipassana, it was very difficult for me sit attend a course and sit in many hours. And I start serving and I find a middle way for myself. I'm helping others and still I'm this surrounding and I meditate few hours. So, and I start serving more, organizing courses, translating courses.
Yeah.
And I was thinking I'm developing quite good, but then I see some students who practicing more sitting, more meditating than serving. They developing quickly, and now it's come to me the point that somehow I was restricted from service on Vipassana courses, and only what I have, only what I can do to do meditation on the courses.
Yeah.
So can you talk about this service? Is it really just business or it still have some advantages? Why you saying that karma yoga is just business?
No, I never say karma yoga is just to be busy. May I say that many people who say they are doing karma yoga, they are simply busy. That's not the same thing. I speak usually about 3 yogas, you say, yes, because the 3 classical, I mean, there are so many in-between practices, but the 3 classical yogas, they are either focusing mainly on consciousness, or mainly on love, or mainly on energy. The yogi is focusing mainly on energy, the devotee is focusing mainly on love, and the jnani is focusing mainly on consciousness. And none of them is better than the others. Now then, there is karma yoga. Karma yoga in olden times meant something quite differently. Then a karma yogi was meticulously following the scriptures and would always do pujas and everything the karma yogi, the karma kandi did was according to rules in the scriptures. How he gets up, how he goes to the toilet, how he is washing himself, and then he has to do his homa puja and what kind of pujas he has to do. In this way, he somehow is integrating the 3 other aspects, because he has to be conscious all the time to not make mistakes, to follow strictly the rules. He, in his puja, he's supposed to develop the devotion, feel the divine presence, and then along with that, there comes also yogic exercises. And so his whole day is full of how to behave, what to do. Now, karma yoga has a bit changed the meaning. Now, people talk about seva and mean that is karma yoga. So this has to become karma yoga, to do seva. And it works to do seva, but the one who is doing seva has not to do seva with a business idea of thinking, okay, I'm doing seva and for that I'm gaining points that eventually I'm getting the reward for these points, like doing your job and at the end of the month you get the salary. And you can do seva in different ways, and then it really becomes karma yoga. You can do seva like more the jnana approach, that whatever you are doing, you just remain observing, being aware that you are doing things, at the same time being aware there is that silent center that is not moving, is not doing, is simply observing all the things that are happening. And so in that karma, in that seva, that the sevaki is still meditating, being consciously conscious. Or you can do seva more as a devotee, that whatever you are doing, you can do as a service. And then it doesn't matter whether you're doing that service as a worship, I wanted to say, as a worship to God, as a worship to connect with that divinity. And then it doesn't matter whether you do your seva in a Vipassana meditation center or whether you're just doing your normal work, whatever you do, whether you're doing it at home or in a place where you have a job, then if you do what you are doing with that awareness that there is that divine presence, and you are doing your work, your actions as a worship, as a puja, then the seva becomes karma yoga. Or then you can do the seva more in a yogic style or more in a vipassana approach style, that you just do whatever you do, but as good as you can, you remain aware energetically. That you observe your body sensations when you do the seva, that you be aware of your breath, and through the breath be aware of the energies in the body when you're moving, when you're confronting people, when you arrange things, when you do your ordinary work, when you sweep the floor at home. That whatever you are doing, that energetically you remain aware as good as you can, and then the seva becomes karma yoga. So if you do seva focusing more on consciousness, if you do seva focusing more on love and devotion, if you do seva focusing more on energy, it doesn't matter. You can do one or a combination of the three. But if you do the seva without any of this, then you are merely busy. then you cannot call that seva karma yoga. Then people doing external work and want to do good deeds and hope that they somehow get something good out of it. But if that conscious practice is not there while doing the seva, you hardly can call that seva karma yoga. Then people are merely busy. But if you really do your work, whatever it is, even if you do outside, if you build houses for people, if you if you help people in one way or another, or if you do something totally else, if you do it in the right spirit and connect either mainly with consciousness or mainly with love or mainly with energy, then that can be called karma yoga.
Yeah, thank you for becoming more clear. Hari Om.
You're welcome. Hari Om. Hari Om. Is there anybody else who would like to come? You're welcome. The spiritual life, the spiritual approach is not the business. It's not the business that somehow with practice, with devotion, with yoga or with seva, we have to collect points, and then At the end of the day, we are going to get the reward. The reward is instantly. What we are looking for is not somewhere far away. What we are pursuing is our true nature. It is here, is now, it's never absent. And the spiritual practice is not that we are accumulating enough good points that finally we get the reward of getting our true nature. You are that here now. We may have totally forgotten. There may be layers and layers of ignorance covering it up, but it's never changing the fact that here now you are that divinity. It's never absent. It's always present. The spiritual practices, they are not really to reach something that is absent now, and then after the practice we have found it. The spiritual practices are helps that make it easier to become alert enough to see what we are doing in our psyche, how contradictory we are functioning so many times, and creating tensions and creating pain that prevents us from being at ease, at peace, and aware of that divinity. So the spiritual practices help us to remove the obstacles. And it doesn't matter, it can be any spiritual practices. And karma yoga is also a spiritual practice like this, not that we are working and then finally we get the reward. But one gets the reward every time you consciously turn the attention back to yourself, that you are here now, that you relax in that. Every time you do that, immediately the reward is there, because it's like a little opening. A little opening, you become aware of something more expansive. As long as we are in the mind and brooding about things and worrying about things, it's like our conscious experience becomes smaller and smaller and locked in that little bubble. Every time you are capable of letting go, it's like there is an opening that the experience can become more expansive. One can devise one's own way. One can learn techniques that help. One can go on the traditional path or do something totally different. Everything that helps us to become more conscious. And in that becoming more conscious, letting go easier, the tensions and whatever is disturbing, everything that does that is helpful, is useful, is good. And all the yogas, they have that same purpose. Whether be it Jnana Yoga or Bhakti Yoga or Yoga, Raja Yoga or Karma Yoga. It's not that we have to earn good points and then finally get something served as a reward. The point of it is to become more conscious here now, more alert, and learn to relax, let go in that alertness, and in that relaxation, being in the present, a lot of covering up that we have been carrying around simply starts to evaporate. I see Mariam. Would you like to come in?
Yes.
Hello, Mariam.
Hi, Werner. So yeah, it's quite interesting about all the yogas you're talking about, and I would be interested more in your vision and perspective on Bhakti yoga, and how was it also popping up in your life, or how you practice it. It's very personal, but yeah, maybe you can talk a bit about that. And maybe I have another question after that. Let's see.
Right. I can say that as a little boy, I was for some time very religious. And then still I started to question about whatever I heard, and then I became a bit less devotional. And then I came across yoga, but through the yoga, I came also across Sri Ramakrishna. Although at the same time, they were quoting Ramana Maharshi. So I was also brought in connection with the jnana, but that for some time, Sri Ramakrishna became very much like a guiding star for me. And his simplicity, his simple childlike devotion has been touching my heart very much and has somehow very much inspired me. Later, that aspect was going a bit more back in the background, and I connected more with the jnana approach, which was then natural. I had been doing also yoga, but then while for some time I just was inspired by that great bhakta, who was of course also a true jnani, but his external appearance was so childlike, a childlike devotion, which inspired me very much. And then I came to India, started to study Vedanta. There we were singing bhajan also in that Vedanta school, which I liked very much, but it was merely jnana, studying books. But then I left and came to Amma, and she was that young crazy mystic, and for me then the devotion was mainly that relationship with my guru. My practice remained mainly jnana practice, with having a mantra from her, doing that mantra, doing some yoga, but mainly jnana, and bhakti and yoga was a bit at the sideline. But actually, simply, even if I thought I'm quite a jnana practitioner, but simply being in relationship with a guru, that in itself, without doing something special about it, that in itself was a practice of devotion, which was without me being active devotionally. That was something that permeated everything in those years of then mainly sitting in the way of a jnana approach. Later, this shifted to become more yogic, that I was more focusing on energy, but then the devotion always was automatically included. Now, some people think if somebody does not do any devotional practice, it's not possible, you have to, but somebody who practices sincerely, also another approach. The jnani who sincerely is just doing the Atma Vichara or the more traditional jnana meditations, if that sincerity is there, that in itself is devotion to the supreme truth. So without doing much devotional practices, devotion was simply an integral part, sometimes more intense, sometimes less intense in my life. Okay, is that about what you wanted to know?
Yes, quite interesting. Because, yeah, I thought it's when we try to separate all these different paths all the time, I kind of ask myself if there is also like a unity of all of them.
Right.
And yeah, I think you exactly answered me
Mhm.
now with your answer that it is like this, that it's not this or that, it's all of it. Probably you can,
Right. You
or
can have
sometimes
you can have a preference for something, but if you are really sincere, then the other aspects somehow also have to come in. Yeah.
yeah. And what would you say? I mean, is there are people who are like only practicing bhakti yoga, and how would that look like?
Well, if their visible, their external practice is purely devotional, they may be doing bhajans a lot, they may be doing mantra a lot, they may be doing puja, they may be, I mean, there were those great bhaktas in the Indian tradition. They would, even when they walked from one place to another, sing God's praises. But by that sincerity, then automatically the other two aspects had to come in. If somebody is practicing devotional practices, but it remains on a superficial emotional level, then gradually it degenerates just to become a show for other people to look at. But if that devotion is sincere, if that devotee starts to feel that divine presence more and more, then automatically the mind is quietening down. And with that quietened mind, there comes a clarity which the jnana practitioner looks for, that clarity of being here now, alert and sharp. It has to come to the devotee too. And if that devotion is really sincere and is going deeper, automatically the prana will be included, that the body will start to change, the devotee will start the flow of energy in the body, in the subtle body, easier and easier. So the yoga is also included, even if they do, strictly speaking, externally only devotional practices. Okay?
Okay. And yeah, maybe I have another question, which I don't know if you can answer it or how you will answer it. But I have a question because I am now, it's Navaratri, and I am chanting the chapter 5 of the Mahatmya, Devi Mahatmya, I think. And I am connecting with the feminine aspect, goddess, in that sense. And then I have the question that it is celebrated, the feminine, yeah, somehow, but in society in India, as I assume, there is also this, I think even in the Ramanaya, it's mentioned that the woman is inferior to the husband. I mean, wife has to be submissive and worship the husband like a god. Can you say something about that, or
Right.
what is going on here? I mean,
Right. Why is that whole story so patriarchal? Basically, it was not. Yes, then that was looked at as the ideal marriage, that the woman is worshipping the husband like a manifestation of God, but vice versa also, that the husband is worshipping the wife as a manifestation of God, mutually. Then in time, sometimes it has a bit changed because that patriarchal spirit was all around the world and taking over and suppressing a bit the feminine aspect of divinity. But it's very much awakening, and it is about to change. The divine is neither female nor male. And it is female and it is male. It is both, it is neither, it's beyond. But all the aspects are included. And it is not simply like it's man or women. Every man has that female aspect. Every woman has that male aspect. Somehow it has come out of balance, which has caused a lot of trouble. And now is a very troublesome period where old patterns want to desperately hold on and something is changing and wants to bring it back in harmony. It's not that after the male dominant period, now we need a female dominant period. What we need is that the two aspects are harmonizing, and out of that something very beautiful and harmonious can grow. And actually it's on the way, but right now it's still a struggle that old powers don't want to let loose and create something very negative in the world, but this will pass. And then the female aspect will again be more integrated, which can then create a harmonious society, accepting both the female and the male aspect of reality, being aware that the essence is way beyond all this. Now they are celebrating Navaratri. And if you feel like chanting the chapter 5 of the Mahatya, then by all means, if that helps you to connect with that female part of divinity. Simply don't make the same mistake that before has been made, that the male part was overrated, that we now overrate the female aspect. Bring the two in a harmony, and then that is the point of it. But it's basically crazy how mistreated women have been in Indian society for a long time, because in no other religion the female aspect is worshipped so much like in the Hindu religion. Something has externally gone quite wrong there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Werner. I'm also a bit connecting with Sri Anandamayi Ma.
Yes.
And I just read about her husband and that he kind of supported her on her spiritual path and accepted her like his spiritual teacher.
Yes.
And that is also quite interesting. So everything is existing. Yeah.
Everything is existing, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Hari
You're
Om.
welcome. Hari Om. Hari Om. Is there anybody else who would like to come in, say something?
Hari Om.
Hari Om, Vikas.
Werner, my question is, why do we always say that I feel it, like when we are praying to God or when you are talking, the disturbed mind calms down, and it calms down so much that after some time I sleep off. But again, then I wake up. Similarly, when I'm working in office, if there is a lot of work, then I get so much stress that my brains are like disturbed everywhere. I'm not able to breathe properly. But disturbance and peace is also aspect of God itself, right? When my mind is everywhere, it is disturbed. That is also aspect of God. Why do we say that when our mind calms down and it is peaceful, only then I can feel God? Why can't I feel God when it is all disturbed?
Because that divinity is basically at ease, at peace, immovable. Now it is also dynamic and it's manifesting. And when it's manifesting harmoniously, actually, you don't feel it is disturbed. You don't call it disturbed. It's just a beautiful expression, manifestation. The disturbance, the restlessness, the negativity, all that comes in when that harmony is broken. It's still, it can only exist because that divine base is there. So in that sense, you're right. It cannot be apart from God. But if our attention, our mind is sucked on that restless level, then we are totally identified with all the little things we are thinking about. We are totally identified with that me, separate personality, and it's not possible to be aware there is that silent aspect, that immovable aspect, that which is not touched by all the strains and pains that we are creating in the mind. Although this is still without the divinity, it cannot be there. So it's still within the divine. When we are identifying with that restlessness, then there the identification becomes so absorbed that we forget about divinity. Whereas the more you are quiet, the more you have the tendency to open up. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be in a place where it's quiet all the time. You can be in a place where it's restless, but you can learn more and more that even in the midst of that restlessness, it's possible that you relax and you are aware something very peaceful, something very quiet is there. And then you can externally also participate in a apparently very restless place with restless people, but at the same time, always be aware. It's just a game, it's just a role, it's momentary, but there is something totally unaffected there. And then the restlessness will not more be perceived as restlessness.
Thank you so much, Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om. I see not much, but it's Victoria.
Oh, here, let me turn a light on. It's dark in here.
Yes, hello, Victoria.
I had a little trouble coming in, but this talk about experiences in meditation that we started with in Kundalini, it made me want to ask you a strange experience I had many years ago. Yes. Because afterwards I thought, I bet that was Kundalini. So I'd had a practice on my own for many years, but the first Buddhist meditation retreat I went to, it was just a weekend. And it was a new retreat center that didn't have any buildings yet. So we were in this big tent, camping out in little pup tents, at night. And it was really cold because it was in the mountains. So it was the end of the first day. I was like, we were our last sit, and I really wanted to get enlightened that weekend. I mean, I really thought if I really practiced, I had unrealistic ideas about how quickly I could, evolve, But so I was like practicing like boot camp, and I was wrapped up in a sleeping bag because it was so freezing. And I started to have this extremely unpleasant physical feeling. I felt like there was an inner tornado and something was going whir, whir, whir. And it was going up, and it made me feel like I was going to explode. It was very uncomfortable, and it made me so hot. I went from being cold to just throwing off my sleeping bag, and I felt like there was a big cloud of steam just rising up because I was so hot. And I was trying to be quiet, but it took so much self-control for me not to just scream and run out of the tent. I wanted to scream so bad, and I just thought, how much longer can I sit here like this? Like, when is the hour going to be up? And finally the hour was up, and I just wanted to escape. And the next day, when we had our time with the teacher, I told him about it. And I said, is this going to happen every time I go on? And he said it might never happen again, which was comforting. And it never did happen again, although I often get warm when I meditate. And matter of fact, I always get a little warmer. When I meditate, I always have to take off a layer,
Yeah.
you know, but thank God it never happened again like that. But so what do you think?
Yes, I mean, basically you're asking whether this is Kundalini.
Yeah, do you think it was?
Well, Kundalini, as I said, there is that mythic snake, but it's just a symbol. Basically, all the life force in the body is a manifestation of that Kundalini energy, of that same life energy. And there you went to that retreat center and you did meditations more that you were used usually, and in the whole setup that it somehow made something move, which was, I guess, what happened was that some tension that has been stored up there had opened up and started to release an unusual amount of energy that at that time it manifested in a heat, but your body was not used to it. So instead of being pleasant, it was uncomfortable, just because it was too much. Then the body was quite ready to deal with, and then the same energy that when it comes stronger can create ecstasies, but if it's coming too strong, then it can also create pain and discomfort. And so I think you have somehow mustered up a bit more energy at that first day than you were quite capable of handling.
So true. My practice is way more relaxed and gentle.
Yeah.
But I really just I was putting in so much effort, you know.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
So I think it's not something particular special that you read about in the scriptures that happens, but just in your case there, you brought so much energy in motion that then it had to somehow get released, and it was more that your nervous system was at that time ready to deal with in a relaxed way, so it felt very uncomfortable. If the same thing had happened to you a few years later in the practice, you wouldn't maybe have felt it so uncomfortable, but quite a nice, beautiful experience.
Oh, interesting. And the way that just sitting down to pray intentionally, I find that I get warmer. Do you think that's just because I'm relaxing and maybe my body just works better and I'm, you know, more able to circulate warmth or something?
No, it is when we are on the way, then there is a continuous shifting that the body changes, the subtle body changes, the energetically we change, emotionally, intellectually we change, and it has the tendency to create warmth. Sometimes people have total heat attacks. Some people have not so heat attacks, but the body is just burning, and or then you can get a gentle warmth, which is not uncomfortable, I think.
Yeah.
An artist really focused, concentrated on the art, doing painting or also playing music, often has that same experience. When they are strongly and now focused, that heat is rising in the body. Eventually, all seems to be attuned in such a way that it's not more so much happening, but rather the opposite, that there is a coolness that it's spreading in the system. But you can take it as an encouraging sign that, yes, you are going in the right direction, something good is happening.
Well, good, good. Yeah. Maybe I was also like releasing trauma or releasing, I don't know. At the time, I thought, is this just like me releasing a lot of aversion or something? I don't know. But
Do you talk now about that first experience? Or
yeah,
yeah. Certainly some tension was letting go. And that made it possible that so much energy manifested that at the time you just couldn't handle it in a harmonious and pleasant way. So it became, were you scared?
Well, I wasn't afraid. It was so unpleasant. It was just such torture. It was just torture.
Right.
It felt like that. Yeah.
Sure, there was some release there, whatever it was, that has been stuck with you, and there it was releasing, but in such a forceful way that instead of being ecstatic about it, you had to like endure the thing until it was gone.
Yeah. I felt great afterwards. I mean, I slept well that night,
Right. I can think so. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. I hadn't thought about that for a long time, but thanks for examining it with me.
You're welcome. Hari Om. Hari Om. When I talked in the beginning about Kundalini, I said also, you hear so different stories. And they are all true. In all those energetic happenings, adjustments that are going on when we become more conscious, when we learn to harmonize, then all kinds of things can happen. And from one person to another, that may be very, very different. Because of that, we should not take too serious when we read books about somebody telling about their awakening, their Kundalini awakening, and whatever happened, and then think that is how it goes. That is how it went for that person. In the spiritual path, learning to get attuned more with the divine, and it can happen in very different ways. Whatever is happening, it's good to learn to just learn to be relaxed and connect. And then we can just observe both. Even if something happens in an unpleasant way, we can just observe and relax and let it come, be there and let go. And actually the pleasant thing also that we don't have to get swept away with trying to stick to blissfulness when blissful experiences are there, but also enjoy the experience, but at the same time learn to just observe. It comes, it's there, and it goes. And in that approach, becoming more aware of one's own divinity, in that rising the level of energy, in that awakening of the Kundalini, all kinds of things can happen. It's good not to be scared by what is happening, but just be aware. Okay, these are experiences, some of them beautiful, blissful, or there is just a profound peace. Some may be agitated and not so pleasant, but they are experiences. They come, they are there for some time, they go. Behind that, there is that one essence that is simply not affected by it. I wish you all well. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om.